First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got that.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
yes,
but an erratic detective, is Mickey Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
You apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Leonard Craig. Thanks for being with us. This is what we call an alfresco interview. You're familiar with alfresco dining. That means open air dining. It's an Italian word meaning open air. And we did an alfresco interview with Ravi Dev on the Looney Street outside the studio. And we thought it appeared good. So we will repeat it with 007. So here we are this evening on the Looney Street outside the studio with 007. Well, you know 007 is James Bond, the man with the license. Vincent Alexander had a mouthful to say about James Bond, who announced that he supported the re-election of President Ali. And Vincent Alexander was our guest 2 Mondays ago, and he said to us that African Guyanese have a post-slavery trauma, and it leads them into all kinds of directions. And he attributed that post-slavery sin trauma to James Bond's reason for going over to the PPP. In other words, to sum it up, this post-slavery trauma, and I forgot to mention, he said it has passed into the DNA of African Guyanese, so it's a permanent trauma. He said it explains some of the things, and many of the things, not presentable, not acceptable, maybe some of it self-destructive, of what African Guyanese do. And he said James Bond went into the arms of the PPP because of post-slavery trauma that he's suffering from. We thought it is best, only decent, but journalistically professional, to ask James Bond for an hour to elaborate on the pitfalls and the weaknesses, if there are any strengths, on the Vincent Alexander theory as applied to him, James Bond. Thanks for being with us this evening. Thanks, Leonard Craig, the ever-reliable Leonard Craig, for being with us. I will now hand over to Leonard Craig.
Thank you again, viewers. Thank you for joining us. I noticed James got a little live going, and we welcome those on James's program as well. We should note, for those who missed that program, Vincent Alexander specifically singled out James Bond. And almost the entire program, he used James Bond as an example. I attempted on several occasions to bring other characters in, like Walter Rodney and all of that, and he said he's not comfortable speaking on others. So it seems as though there is some sort of fixation on James. James, we got to find out what that is. So we just thought it best, and in fact, let me say this to the viewers, that Vincent Alexander was invited to come back and confront James Bond, sit down with James Bond and have a discussion. And he said that he received negative comments on Facebook, and as a result of that, he doesn't want to subject himself to that. We may probably even discuss a little bit about that as well, but I don't want to, whenever we have guests, we allow the guests free-flowing opportunity to speak, so I don't want to speak too much more. I just want to bring in James. But James, when you, I am assuming that you looked at that program, when you saw what Vincent had to say, what was your thought process? How did you look at that?
The first thing I said, and thanks for having me again, Mr. Kissoon, Mr. Craig. Thanks for availing me the opportunity to respond. Thank you very much for that. Well, Mr. Kissoon and I spoke, the first thing I said, I need to research what he said. That's the first thing. One, because I value persons' opinions, and if they're going to present something that is seemingly intellectual or some study went behind it, I think it's only wise for me to avail myself of the research. So the first thing I did was to research the theory that he posited. And to my amazement, just a cursory glance at what he said, the theory that was posited, I think, is John DeGee, writer, and I did a little printout of what John DeGee said, is that it is so far removed from not only the Guyana experience, but removed from me personally, that I wondered if Mr. Alexander, if he actually read anything or he overheard someone said it, because I think in the Village Voice there was an editor that tried to psychoanalyze me. And I think that he probably just read what someone said or had a cursory conversation and decided he was going to just put this thing out in the open without doing the scholarly thing, which was to go research and read what it said. Now, John DeGee wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, America's Legacy of Enduring Injury and Healing. And this is the thing he says particularly about it. PTSS is a theory that explains the etiology of many of the adaptive survival behaviors in African American communities throughout the United States and the diaspora. It is a condition that exists as a consequence of multi-generational oppression of Africans and their descendants resulting from centuries of chattel slavery, a form of slavery which was predicated on the belief that African Americans were inherently genetically inferior to whites. This was then followed by institutional racism, which continues to perpetuate injury, thus result in MAP. Now, what is MAP? Interesting. This is the consequences of the PTSS. Multi-generational trauma together with continued oppression, absence of opportunity to heal or access the benefits available to the society, leading to post-traumatic slave syndrome. Key behaviors: vacant esteem, marked propensity for aggression, for anger and violence, racist socialization, internalized racism. And I could stop there because he talked about antipathy, aversion, literacy deprivation, a number of negative things. And I was like, in no way, shape, or form could Mr. Alexander be speaking about me. The first thing that I was taught as a child was he who in Christ is a new creature. The first thing I was taught as a child was greater is he that is in you than he is in the world. The first thing I was taught as a child is that we are all created equal in the sight of God. So my father is a pastor. So the first thing that I know growing up in Mabaruma is like, look, you are not, your head not the tail. If it's anything I have sometimes, if you said something, behave a bit arrogantly, or I tell his confidence that my father encouraged, that I could speak out, that I could be outspoken, that kind of thing. I was never suffering from vacant self-esteem. I was never have a propensity for anger and violence. I was never racist. So these are the things that are resultant of the John Degree writing a book. This is not something that is peer reviewed. This is not something that is a theory that is peer reviewed and something concretized that says yes, this is a fact. This is a man writing a book, looking at what happened in America. One, they went through slavery, then they were the John Crow laws, etc., etc., etc. We went through slavery, now after slavery apprenticeship, Africans started buying lands, started owning lands.
Victoria.
Yes, all the Buxton, right through, Friendship, you name, we started buying lands. We were the artisans and everything. Following that, Africans, Afro-Guyanese became the first prime minister, the first president. Africans dominates the police force, the GDF, the public service. So John Degree in America could not be describing the Guyana context. It is so far removed. We do not have institutionalized slavery. We don't have John Crow laws. The scholarships I was given as a child, the Amerindian scholarship, the first scholarship I got was an indigenous people scholarship. Just make that sink in. Here, if you were there, John Degree is saying that Africans and Afro-Americans suffered from lack of access to scholarships, access to things. The first scholarship I got was in the Mabroom. The second scholarship was a government of Guyana scholarship. Today, the government of Guyana is giving 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 scholarships. We've always had equal opportunities for both races. All races, sorry, not both races, 6 races. Equal opportunities. So, Vincent Alexander, in no way, shape, or form, could juxtapose what is happening in America in a book, not something that's peer-reviewed, to Guyana, and to transplant it and then to put it down on James Bond when I'm the least person to suffer from trauma, Uncle Freddie. The least person, and most persons who are around me. I'll give you an example. I was as a child, we got licks. As a child, my father, corporal punishment licks. It's really rather spoil the child. I tell my son? I told my son, boy, if I gotta beat you. One time I beat him. One time. I said, boy, if I gotta beat you, me make you for beat you. So I am automatically reversed because I don't believe that, you gotta go licking down no child and beating no child for them to learn. I believe in speaking. And I reverse that. So trauma doesn't affect me. My mindset is different. So, Comrade Alexander, the first off, you can't be speaking about James Bond. You're ice past James Bond. That's all I'm going to say. You're ice past James Bond. But I have some more things you guys could weigh in, but I have some more stuff to get into with what he actually said on the program.
Let me leave James Bond for a while. We'll come back to 007. You have a license to do anything. He said this thing is now passed on to African Guyanese genes. It is a genetic condition now in African Guyanese. Have you ever said he find that someone can say African Guyanese have a genetic condition? It's unimaginable.
Well, that's one of the counter arguments to what he said. Now, the guy wrote a book, John Degree. He wrote a book. So one of the things that they criticized him on is, sir, you're being racist here. You're being racist because if you're going to propagate the view that African Americans, they're genetically impaired, their genes or their DNA somewhat render them inferior, then you're being racist. And this is the thing it struck me most about Vincent Alexander. And I will criticize him and criticize him very harshly today. Because I want the people to see who's the person who's leveling criticisms. Every time I hear Vincent Alexander speak, he's whining and complaining. Every time I hear him speak, he's whining and complaining. He's a complainer and a whiner. I had a chance to listen to him just recently when he went overseas, where they spoke about the voices from the ground. African Guyanese are looking to the future. Now, he had a presentation of what is supposed to be for the future of African Guyanese. And all Vincent Alexander did was complain and whine. He spoke of prescriptive rights. He spoke of young Afro-Guyanese contractors doing drains and doing roads. Everything he spoke about, not once did Vincent Alexander paint a picture of the macroeconomic success. He had an opportunity to do this. He says we're the fastest growing economy in the world in terms of GDP. Well, sir, you should then therefore go to say the areas in which there's tremendous macroeconomic opportunity available to Afro-Guyanese. If I were speaking as Vincent Alexander to an audience, and I'm to speak about the future of Afro-Guyanese in Guyana, and I'm recognizing that here we have the fastest growing economy in the country, then I would advise my Afro-Guyanese, something I've been doing all along, to position themselves in these areas. For example, oil and gas. Just recently they had the local content summit in which we're told about $20 billion that are available to the local content and local persons here. We're hearing of the new bridges going across the Harbor Bridge, opening new lands. We hear about farming. We hear about brackish water shrimp in the hinterland and the coast, which is producing, which is going to be $1 billion US enterprise. We're being told of other lands for traditional, non-traditional crops. So much is happening in Guyana right now. The opening of the road from Lethem to Linden to Lethem Highway, from New Amsterdam to Molson Creek, which will pass through Afro-Guyanese villages. Just recently we heard of the deep water port, which is going to be close to New Amsterdam. Now instead, Vincent Alexander tells his Afro-Guyanese audience, look, you have so much happening. How do we position ourselves? His organization, IPADA-G, received in excess of hundreds of millions of dollars. At least, Vincent Alexander, give us a plan, Afro-Guyanese. At least give us a plan as to how you could position Afro-Guyanese in these sectors. You talk about Afro-Guyanese getting roads and have to rent equipment. Sir, you're so far removed from reality, it's almost comical. I'll call a name. Christopher Fletchman. How you doing, Chris? How you doing, my brother? Love you. Christopher Fletchman in 2020 came to me. He says, James, I want to buy an excavator. I said, Chris, it's an excellent idea. I had a Canter that time. He wanted to move the excavator around. I had a Canter. I said, Chris, you're my brother. Look, I ain't using the Canter. Take the Canter and pay for it however you like. Chris took that Canter, cut out the back, and make it into something to fetch his excavator. Today, Christopher Fletchman, he has an excavator, he got a roller, he got a bobcat. He does rental of equipment. So to paint this picture as if Afro-Guyanese are just digging drains and doing roads and all this, it is so far removed. I'm going to give him my example. And it's not me joining the PP, and I would open my accounts and open my business, Vincent Alexander. Nobody else. I started my bar with $400,000. And I tell the guy, everybody knows James Murphy's bar. I didn't join no PP. Successful. I started another business under the PPP. Successful. I started another one on the PPP. Successful. This is not me. And I wasn't a member of the PPP. I didn't join the PPP Civic. What attracted me to the PPP Civic, Mr. Vincent Alexander, was progress. Was vision. Something that you clearly lack. You don't even have a vision for IPADA-G. You don't have a vision for Afro-Guyanese. I don't know how you could sit and just paint this picture as if we're doing nothing in terms of the business world, in terms of moving along, in terms of changing dynamic and the landscape. Look at Linden, about how much hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts given out. Your advice, look, you know something, and the vice president is saying that Vincent Alexander is not saying it. Financial literacy, financial independence.
Yeah.
You got the vice president advising your community as to how to manage resources. And you're not doing it. Instead, you're whining and complaining, and as if nothing is being done in this country for black people. And James Bono, who is suffering some court case, my brother, even though I'm a lawyer, sir, I don't frighten the court. The police could tell you, on the East Coast, every time they want James Bond, I jump in the vehicle. Me and frighten police, never did. I don't have the spirit of fear. You ask any police officer, they come to look, you looking for James Bond, I in the vehicle, in the truck. With the one you lock the padlock even, not just the open vehicle. I walk it in, the one is lock and padlock. The police, if they wanted me, what you doing here? I say, you are looking for me. Ask me and read. Nobody else come to look for you. I'm not afraid of the police, afraid of the law. I'm an attorney. I know my rights. So to say that I frighten some court case and I go to PP because of some court case, man, sir, again, it is so laughable. It is so laughable. I came and joined the PP because of progress. One. The second thing is I tell people I can't wait on anybody. I refuse to spend my years waiting on somebody to say, oh, James Bond, come, it's your turn to make a contribution to X or Y or to Z. And I think that is the problem. You see, in Vincent Alexander case, he's there for a number of years. And when one GCOM commissioner left, they brought another old GCOM commissioner, elderly. If you look at the PP Civic Hub, they brought on young commissioners.
Yep.
I want to be around people who respect young people, want to use you while you're young, not till you're old and great. And can't really contribute meaningfully to this country. Let me go with the PPP Civic. And if Vincent Alexander, whoever want to say James Bond got whatever syndrome, whatever, fine, so be it. But I know myself, Comrade Alexander. I know myself completely.
Just for some housekeeping, I want to use this opportunity because I got several calls concerning it. In one of our programs last week, I think, I did mention an issue with Nigel Hughes on the East Coast. I want people to understand, and I want Nigel Hughes to understand, that I'm not criticizing his business. He is a lawyer and he has a right to take on any case. But I was just making the point, which I want to clarify now, that the case, that particular case to which I refer, involved 1, NDC lands, 2, ancestral lands, and 3, transported lands owned by Afro-Guyanese. And if you are at an international level representing Afro-Guyanese, and a case such as that come to your firm, it should be an automatic, it should ring automatic bells heavily in your head to the extent where it should affect your morals. And if the firm of Nigel Hughes would have taken such a case, knowing that it will deprive, let's assume you take the case and win the case, it will deprive Afro-Guyanese of the same thing you condemn the government for not providing enough for Afro-Guyanese. It will deprive them of generational wealth. And something like that, your morals can't be so low.
Watch it.
Let me take that back. All I am saying is that if you're representing Afro-Guyanese on one side and their economic interests, and there's a case coming up that can sink them with respect to their economic interests, then I think the moral thing to do is to say, no, I cannot, take this case to someone else. It doesn't suit, So that is all I'm saying. And I use the term, when it comes to people who claim to represent you, what you do is examine the horns. And that is all I was mentioning. Just making that comparison.
James, Alexander, you watched the program. Alexander made a number of accusations. And one he said is that he used the word community. He didn't say Africans, he didn't say race. He said you went a step further. And this is in part the syndrome. You went over to the PVP and keeping you possessed of post-slavery trauma. But you went and delegated your community. We asked him to give us examples. Now, I wanted to know what you said about African Guyanese, because you've been on this program 6-7 times, and I've never heard, and plus I know you personally, and I've never heard you say them black people this. I've never heard you say that. I know Desmond Hunt, in a rage, had said something about African Guyanese when they were shouting down at his car at New Garden, Shiv Chandrapal Drive on Newton Street. So I wanted to know, what was this delegations about the community? He said he equated the PNC with African Guyanese. And
coterminous is the word he used.
Coterminous, and you did it by criticizing PNC leaders.
PNC leaders.
Could you clarify what you did? And
I say this. You've heard me on this program say, you know, certain people I will not publicly criticize because I have their numbers. Aubrey Norton is on that list. Aubrey Norton is on the list. I won't publicly criticize Aubrey Norton because I got his number. If I want to say something to Comrade Norton, I'll call him and tell him it. Again, I grew up in a house, and people don't understand me. My father encouraged us to say and to speak freely. My criticism, I know where Vincent Alexander's venom comes from. Is when I spoke of IPADA-G. When I learned that they had hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal and what they did with it. That's where it comes from. But for my community, ask Melanie what I've done for my community. And if I've ever criticized my community, ask Melanie what I've done for my community. Ask students who've come to me from law, UG, wherever, what I've done for my community.
So did you badmouth PNC leaders?
And again, if I criticized any PNC leader, I would have done so fairly and justly. I have never singled out any person for criticism unfairly and unjustly. And I again, Vincent Alexander, Comrade Alexander is making a lot of this up. I've said this very clearly and publicly, and I've said it since, and I put up the article when I said after 2015, we should have gotten more young people in cabinet, in authority, in positions, that kind of thing. And I say it again when I say young people should not vote for APN UFC. Young people should not vote for APN UFC because of the record of treating young people. Vincent Alexander's case and GCOM Commission is a typical one. They do not promote and support young people. The young people be good now in opposition. But if they get their hands on power, you'll see how they treat young people. And that is a valid criticism. We've seen their actions throughout 2015, 2020. So I don't know what he's speaking about.
As a prominent, as a prominent African Guyanese, 15 years ago, you're quite well known. I think you were quite well known 15 years ago. When IPADA-G was being formed, were you not consulted?
No, I was not consulted.
How did Vincent come to be the
head? I don't know.
And
again, Vincent Alexander is not fit to be a head of IPADA-G. To handle all of those monies, hundreds of millions of dollars, you need someone with business sense, business acumen, people who can manage resources.
Where that money went?
As far as I'm aware, it went more into
salaries.
No, well, salaries is one. I think they did some training, etc. But one of the things that
they invested in anything.
No, that's the thing. That is the thing. You put 100 million. No, don't mean 100 million. Put 400,000 me and I multiply that. I multiply that. Put 400,000. Don't give me $1 million.
So Vincent, with all
hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars,
never took this money and buy
and put on a land, buy equipment for the young people.
100 acres.
Buy equipment. Buy equipment. No, buy equipment and start to gift African Guyanese. Start something like that. There's no, as far as I'm aware, and I will do a program. I will do a program so the Guyanese can understand, because he spoke of recognition. IPADA-G has
come back on this program.
IPADA-G apparently has 3 mandates: recognition, equity, and development, something like that. So he's failed on all three. I can't remember the middle one. I think I listened to him today, and I'm like, but bro, you failed in the 3 things that you had asked you to do, because I do not know what IPADA-G does, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of Afro-Guyanese do not know what IPADA-G does. In terms of development, you don't do no development of anybody. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And all you could tell people is, look, you can't show up. And this thing is like with some of these guys, they have no legacy. They've built nothing.
The Auditor General is entitled to a report. The Auditor General.
Yeah, of course, because it's public funds at the end of the day. Now, let me just make it clear. I'm not saying you give Afro-Guyanese everything they want and more. Let me put this on record. If you give Afro-Guyanese $300 gazillion, I can say yes. Give them everything they deserve.
So
let me finish. Let me make this point. When it comes to Afro-Guyanese, you give them anything, I'll be the first one to say yes, sir, give them. I'll be the first one in my hand. Give them $100 billion, gazillion, trillion dollars. in terms of reparations, whatever, give Afro-Guyanese it. Give it to them. But my point is this here. When you're going to have these kind of allocations, at least show us what you're doing with it. Something tangible, legacy. What's your legacy, Comrade Alexander, as IPADA-G? You're just a complainer and a whiner. Listen to your G-Com, you're a complainer and a whiner. IPADA-G, you're still complaining and whining. $100 million gone. And you don't have a building, you don't got an excavator, you don't got a land. I don't know, what do you have to show? And you can say, look, I could point to a number of young people I empowered and get jobs for $1 million contracts for. I've made millionaires in this country.
Granger tolerated this year after year. Man. Never asked so how the money was being spent. Before he comes, any one of you know what is Vincent's salary as?
I know salary the G-Com goes to.
No, for IPADA-G.
No, I don't know, but he said he never collected a cent. So Vincent is on record as saying, as far as I'm aware, that he has not collected a single cent from IPADA-G. And to me, that explains why he's done nothing. Because if you're not, a workman is worth of his hired, worth of his tools. You can't muzzle the ox while he's threshing the corn. So if you're not getting paid, you're seeing hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're not being paid from it, sir, then there's a disinterest. That explains his disinterest. Yeah,
there's no incentive.
There's no incentive. Now, if you're being paid to do a job, then you're gonna want to show. Yeah, I'm working for my money here. This is what I have to show. So it explains why you can't. You ask any the average guy, and he speaks so glowingly about knowing what these young contractors are going through. Ask him if any of those young contractors know what he's doing.
IPADA-G has term limits.
I am not sure what happened.
We don't know.
All I know, I think it's a public. It's actually a private company. It's like on the company register, and that is about all I know. I think they said they had done audits, but the thing is, accounting for the funds that you spend and how you spend them or what you spend them on are two different things. So Vincent is saying that he has accounted for every cent, but spent it on what? What is there to show? And I have always said that many of these people who are African rights activists have access to provide several things for Afro-Guyanese. We talk about Afro-Guyanese getting into business and all of that. So there are many Afro-Guyanese who live, for example, overseas and would like to partner with people, but they're timid about losing their money. These people, Nigel and others, who have access to some of these people and some of the power and so on.
Said on this program, Terence Campbell is a billionaire.
Probably. And the point is, well, Terence Campbell is a good example. These people could provide the foundation and provide an organization structure so that people from overseas who want to invest in business, small businesses that Afro-Guyanese own, to make them larger. Because these people are now the figurehead and they have something organized. Quickly, I'm just extending his point. Then they could streamline this thing, and that's the same thing I thought IPADA-G should have been doing. But again, I'm saying I consider myself reasonably well read with respect to current affairs, and I am telling you honestly, I cannot tell anyone of the track record of that organization. And I think, and again I'm saying, Afro-Guyanese need better representation than that. But James,
the two of you know, the two of you are two high-profile African Guyanese. I mean, you do a weekly column. People know James Bond a long time ago. The two of you are two high-profile Africans. Shouldn't the two of you ask African Guyanese to rethink Alexander's leadership? Because if the theory carries inverse racism, I think Ravi Dev is saying it's unimaginable that a black African Guyanese could say African Guyanese got a genetic problem. does not call into question the leadership of African Guyanese of this man. Isn't post-slavery trauma and how it works out. You're saying Africans are tainted?
No, let me just take it.
Should the two of you ask African Guyanese to reconsider?
Let me just put it in two forms. For me, I hear what you were saying, right? But for me, Vincent Alexander's leadership of IPADA-G is a failed one. In the first instance,
you want him removed?
I would love to have him, his leadership terminated. Find someone more proactive. On the basis of this, the first thing is, of the hundreds of millions of dollars the organization received, there is little to show for it in terms of the advancement of people of African descent.
Yeah.
He spoke of these problems we have, which you could, and that's the thing with the likes of Vincent Alexander, could identify a lot of problems, but he's done nothing to fix them. The problems with land titling and ancestral lands, that's something he could fix. He could hire attorneys and provide representation for the people along quarantine and along all these areas, East Coast and in Essequibo Coast that he's speaking of, and get titles for these for Afro-Guyanese. He could do that. The problems that the young people face, now we're hearing of young Afro-Guyanese calling themselves script heads. He could divert funds into these urban communities in the inner city and along the coast to invest in young people in literacy. So his approach to leadership and helping the community leaves much to be desired. And secondly, I don't want a leader who thinks that we suffer from some genetic deficiency. I don't want a leader who's could look at me and tell me, you young black man, you James Bond, you little black boy, you have a disorder that is not yet because of your parents. Sister June and Preacher Bond, love y'all. I love y'all and thank you for giving me education. Thanks for allowing me always to be outspoken. I've said public, I love my family. And if the world for see me, I'm a mom and my dad. I tell people, if I could stop work today, my mom and my dad would mind me. Very much alive, sir. I brought my parents.
Oh yeah, I bet your father in Coast.
Yeah, I brought my mom and dad to my site a couple of years. We had a nice Thanksgiving service. I love my mom and my dad. They're the most important people.
Where they are now?
They're right home right now. Retired, right home on the East Coast. On the East Coast, Numbrel. So I don't want no leader telling me, giving me a different message from what my father taught me. If you can't tell me the things my father taught me, I will resist it. So a lot of these guys, because they look like me, got the same color like me, think that they speak for me. But you can't speak, I can't identify with your language. The minute you come and tell me a victim, and who you're a victim, and who, I listen to some of these leaders, especially some of them in Linden, and all they're doing is whining and complaining. I'm like,
I'm not
gonna call names. Just whining and complaining, whining and complaining, whining and complaining. I'm like,
James,
don't you see?
He's on the floor.
Don't you see what has happened in this country? And your whining and complaining turns people off. It's a good thing people hear me, you know. I'm telling you, it's a good thing. Little black boys, little black girls hear me. Because if I show them a phone, they're gonna see how a daily basis with the little black boys, little black girls I help and assist. I want boast and boast. They are gonna people are gonna come and tell you, hello, don't worry about James man. But y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all just whine and complain. Nobody tell y'all join PPP, that's my decision. But the least you could do is, you know the well is there. A lot of them know where the opportunities lie. This is my problem with them. In the RDCs, in the NDCs, in the parliaments, where they know where all these opportunities lie. And they don't tell people where they are, where the opportunities are. They don't say, well, look, like I heard the VP says, look, the new Harbour Bridge is going on stream and linking the West Bank to the East Bank. And you know if you got land there, you know how much Afro-Guyanese got land there. Before they tell Afro-Guyanese, yo, build up your land, take a loan, take a mortgage, do some restaurant, do some rental property, something for bring in rent, you know, get a little farmland, something over there. They focus money, so chaos ensued that the house not delivered.
What Marty said, in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty.
The fool is thirsty.
James,
yes, Mr.
Alexander also said that your behavior traumatized people like David Hines into saying what they said.
No, but
why you cause trauma on these people?
No, but according to his logic, David Hines suffered the same trauma. Because David Hines spoke out against Burnham. David Hines tried to kill Burnham. Forgive me, David Hines. Let me retract that. There was accusations that David Hines and others in the WEPA were trying to assassinate Burnham. And they were heavily militant in terms of getting guns and ammunition and that kind of thing to overthrow the regime. Walter Rodney himself, it is stated, was very militant. I was trying to overthrow, I think he called Burnham King Kong at the time. So he resisted the PNC, resisted African leadership, because in Walter Rodney's mind and David Hines' mind, the African leadership at the time was not reflective of what the African leadership should have been. They were saying rigged elections, they were saying these excesses, mismanagement of the economy. They were saying, look, this is not what African leadership should be. This is not how Ghana should be run. So everybody has a right to speak. It doesn't, not because you're black means I can't say, well, you're going wrong. I can only say when you're going wrong if you're white or Indian. I think that's a very silly argument to make from someone who claims to be an intellectual like Vincent Alexander. We've had throughout the years Afro-Guyanese who've criticized Afro-Guyanese. And Afro-Guyanese were in the PPP. I'm not the first. I sometimes when they speak, I think I'm the first to do it. And I'm not. I'm not the first to transition, not the first to be vocal. But you know what hurts? I think what happens is that they know what they lose, you know. I was saying, you know, when they talk about the trauma, is that he knows the loss that James Bond. I said you criticize James Bond, make another James Bond. Give them another James Bond. As I'm X, Y, and Z. You give them somebody, James Bond, who you think
X, Y, and Z.
Who could advance your cause and do what you have to do, because it shows that so much competence in terms of leadership is missing from their psyche. They don't know how to lead. That's a problem. They don't know how to lead. So it shows every day in how they speak. And that's the problem.
A long time.
And that is the problem.
I know how long it's been around.
That is the problem. He fought Corbyn. He fought Corbyn, lost. And after then, he just went into...
he said he was treated badly by Amna Ali
and
company.
But you know when he attacked Amna Ali? When she was no longer GS. Think about it. He attacked Amna Ali when she's no longer GS. All the time Amna is there, Comrade Ali is there, and attack him and doing all the kind of things he's accusing her, and not once he lift his voice to say, Comrade Ali, you're wrong. Let us fix this problem. He's never said anything public about Comrade Ali's behavior while she was General Secretary. But he waits when she's powerless, I think, out of the party to lambast her. And it shows cowardice on his part. For me, I attack Amna Ali when she was powerful. When she was at the GS. When they shut out Vola Lawrence from the party, I say wage war against Amna Ali and David Granger. Me, James Anthony Bond, said that. Me gonna wait till you come out to attack you. It's on record. After Vola Lawrence treated badly, and that's another thing too. I could criticize the PNC whole day, whole night. I don't do it. Because you know what?
You said when you do that.
No, I don't do it. I don't do it. Watch me, I don't do that because of race. The reason why I don't criticize the PNC is because of Vola Lawrence. The reason why I don't go hard and criticize him because Vola Lawrence, my mama, she was treated badly. And I don't want to say a lot and don't want to attack a lot because she's still a member of the PNC. And I don't want to attack the PNC. I've never said even when I said the youth should not vote, I said he's a liar. He's a liar. If I criticize even the youth, I says the coalition. The coalition government, I've never said the PNC. I said the AFP and UFC coalition between 2015 to 2020, X, Y,
But what do you make of Alexander calling me Monday morning to say it? He can't tolerate those comments about him.
It's an act of cowardice again. Because look, I've been on this program from whenever. You see them comments I hear? From day one, I get harsh comments.
About me, the host.
You know what I'm saying? So I see those comments, and from years I've been going through it. And now the comments are still coming. From people I know. People like this guy, Winston Jake, I'm going to call him out because I spoke to him already about it.
Shall we don't come put a lash on him? I forward it to him.
Winston Jacobs is someone who calls me regularly in and out. Said, James, help this person, help the person, I would help. Winston and I have a communication together. And when you put a Facebook post, I am corrupting the youths of Melanie. Well, Winston Jacobs, you ask any young person around me, Melanie, James Bond, either got a job for them, they can sign a government contract, they clean a contract, something. I've always helped people with Mr. Jacobs. So instead of corrupting Melanie, I've developed Melanie. And you know, because of me putting my business
don't say
here.
anything about the man.
You know, and he knows this. He knows this.
Please, James.
He knows this. My business is what pushed Melanie in advancement. If I did not, and I said didn't want to go my business in Georgetown. I tell people, they say, I could have gone do anything in Georgetown. I says, no. I'm coming to Melanie and do my business. To show the young people, you could ask Fidel's son, somebody told them. I'm coming to show them, if you work hard, this is the example for it. And that's why I've always taught young people. So Winston Jacobs, I've not corrupted Melanie or corrupted the young people of Melanie. I've helped and assisted the young people of Melanie. And that's fact. That's a legacy.
James, voting in Guyana is largely by race. You can't deny that. And when prominent people of any race, it happens on both sides, but we're talking about Afro-Guyanese here today. When people of some prominence, especially seen as in the leadership of the PNC, leave and go to the PPP, people feel hurt, genuine hurt. I'm not talking about the Alexanders here and the David Hines. I'm talking about the people out there genuinely feel hurt. Can you identify with that, one? And two, how do you address those people that you are, one, making a solid decision, and two, that the decision you have made will redound to the benefit of Afro-Guyanese, especially those within your reach?
Well, first and foremost, yes, I've heard very few persons who said that my transition towards the PPP, they see it as an act of betrayal because of what I advocated for in the past, and what I advocated against in the past. So I understand the hurt. I understand it. I'm not immune. I'm not. Sometimes some people say, James, you're robotic, but I do feel for those persons, and for those persons, I always say this here.
But they have to understand.
Yeah, that's what I tell them. I tell them, look, you know how I always was in the PNC, and I said, you know what I went through in my political career. It's public knowledge what I went through in my political career, early political career. And I said, I have not shied away from any of those values. I said, I'm the same person. The only thing is, I can't identify with people who can't see positive. I find it strange that when you wake up in the morning, all you could see is the bad. All you could identify is to criticize this and criticize that and oppose this and oppose that. How do you tell me, James Anthony, about age 46? An attorney, retired, a businessman, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist. I pat myself on the shoulder right now. How do you tell me that when I go, and I walk the length and breadth of this country, and I see the opportunities, or I go to an expo, and I see the opportunities, or I engage the leaders of this country, and I see the opportunities, how do you tell me then to say, oh, this is bad, this is wrong? I see you there on stupidness. Let me go colloquial now. You there on stupidness. If all you could do is criticize and just see all the bad. This man go and tell to New York about Concussion Road and fail to mention that all the government right now looking for community roads to do. All the roads do. They don't have roads to do anymore. Alexander tell in some bottom house in New York at the same thing with Grounds Afro-Guyanese vision. And he mentioned Concussion Road to these folks, these are the people in the diaspora. Yeah, they should have chased him out. They said, man, but all the roads in Buxton do already. All the roads in Victoria do already. All the roads in Queenstown do already. And all these roads went to the people in the community, Afro Guyanese.
Yeah.
How you could tell me now to criticize that? Oh, you only clean your drain, but under your no AFC coalition, you got nothing. You didn't get the opportunities, so you didn't build capacity in these folks.
You know what he did when AP and UFC was in government?
No,
what was Alexander? I know he worked in the Ministry of Education with
He was part of the accreditation council or something like that. I think that was it. I think he was with the accreditation. But to me, I don't care what he did. He doesn't have a legacy in my mind. In my estimation, he has what is his legacy? Yeah, they put you in charge of this, put you in charge, but what is your legacy? What is your legacy? What have you built? I can't see it.
I want to cut you and tell.
You can cut me.
I want to tell the viewers what Vincent Alexander, as a registrar, did to my daughter, and my daughter said no. University fixed examination for students. They fixing an examination, which 2 examinations were on the same day. They have to undo that. My daughter went to Vincent Alexander. You know what Vincent Alexander told my daughter? Take leave of absence for that course. She went to him to change 2 examinations on the same day, which you don't do that in the real world. You don't do that at the university. You fix your examination so your students can sit them. That girl was traumatized and told Alexander, no, that is his job to fix. So he was telling my daughter to take leave from a full. Yeah. That is, I want the viewers to know that is what Alexander did to my daughter. Alexander has been around a long time like me. We came from the same Watermanville Street area, but sometimes I wonder, he really deeply disappointed me with that post-slavery trauma, which he attributes to Guyanese and attribute to people who have he's actually saying, young our conscience. Everything you do is to that trauma. And then when he said, he's not coming on the Freddie Kissoon Show anymore, he have to put up with those things said about him. If you know what people said about me for 55 years, I've been socially active. Leonard Craig?
One quick thing for the viewers. I want you to look, there's a certain thread running through these people who are, especially James Bond is receiving the brunt of it, and who are criticizing James Bond and call themselves African leaders. I want the young Afro-Guyanese to recognize that these people, in order to follow them, you have to hate. You have to call people names. You have to build programs based on name calling. So you've ever watched Sheriff Duncan program? From beginning to end. Yeah. People, it's just name. Trench Capone, Jagabato, whole day. David Hines, Lick Bottom, this, that, whole day. You gotta hate to perpetuate their practice.
Diabolical use of resources.
Yeah. And we are calling you, as the Bible says, James, to a more excellent way. Think through what you're doing. It doesn't mean it has to end. The end result, you have to vote for the PPP. But examine your leaders and what they're asking you to do. And ask yourself if that is the future you want for yourself and your family. James.
To expand on what you're saying. Now, there are few people, and I always say this, there are few people I've looked at in terms of leaders. When I first got into politics, I saw a leader in Winston Murray. Winston Murray was a Class A leader. Winston Murray brought people together. You know, that's the first thing you look at leadership. Leadership, you must be able to bring people together. Leadership, you must be able to show expand on a future. You must be able to show people a future, build hope in them. Must have that plan. Not just to create hope. Hope is going to create. But actually to show them that blueprint of their future. Those are the 2 things I look at. And you mentioned your experiences with Comrade Alexander. I have had zero experiences with him, except looking at him on television, social media. I've never had a one-on-one with Mr. Alexander, but I've listened to him. And one of the
he said he knows your politics well.
Mr. Alexander knows my politics well. I don't disagree with him.
Okay.
He knows very much my politics. That's why he can't win it. He can't beat my politics. If I walk down the road here, if I decide to campaign on a particular community and he decides to go campaign, I'll beat him. He can't get past Robert Corbyn, he can't get past Barge, he can't get past anybody politically. He's not a winner, he's a whiner. But my point is this here. When I look at Comrade Alexander, I want to get back to the point of African leadership.
Yeah.
It is no longer about your race. To me, let me say this here. Your race can't change. No matter what you do, I can't go to be a white man. No matter what I do, I could bleach, I could change I will still be an African. My loyalties is, if I'm an African leader, is to put forward policies and programs to advance the African people. And in any situation which you were saying that you're just dealing with Afro-Guyanese issues, if one, you can't bring and pull the leaders of the African community together, you're failing. And if two, you can't put forward a future, a blueprint, and a plan for African Guyanese, you're failing as well. In those two categories, as head of IPADA-G, I think he's with Burnham Foundation, GCOM commissioner. He says I know he doesn't say he's a PNC commissioner. He says he's a GCOM commissioner. So he himself, I've heard him said it, he's not a PNC commissioner. He's a GCOM commissioner. So if he says Afro-Guyanese synonymous or coterminous with the PNC, then he distances himself from the PNC and Afro-Guyanese community by saying that he's not a PNC commissioner on GCOM. So he has not been able to do those things, and that is why he needs to know his own politics. Besides knowing James Bond politics, he needs to know his own politics as to where he stands in the Afro-Guyanese community. And that from my own position, he's a hindrance to the Afro-Guyanese community. He's a hindrance to the progress of Afro-Guyanese, because one, he has not been able to pull the leadership of the Afro-Guyanese community together. There are a number of...
Who invited to New York?
I can say the clip. And you can listen for him yourself. How uninspiring this guy is. How uninspiring he is. It's all doom and gloom. So he has not, and you know, the Afro-Guyanese community, the Afro-Guyanese political community, there are certain fractures. He's done nothing to heal those fractures. And two, he has not posited a plan and a program in which we as Afro-Guyanese could say, look, we're following Dr. Alexander's lead. I don't know if he's a doctor, Comrade Alexander's lead. We're following it. This is a path to prosperity. This is a path to equity. This is a path to inclusion. You can speak all those words, Comrade Alexander, you have no plan for it. We're supposed to do it recognition. I haven't seen one billboard.
He said he had a plan for he said he had a plan for the PNC, but Amnali and company derailed.
That's what he's a whiner. He's a whiner. He couldn't get past Amna. Couldn't in a month of Sundays.
But he's conceding then that he didn't have any clout within it.
No, zero.
After being the head of the YSM in Burnham days. So if you look at, he's the YSM, he's the head of the PNC UTAM from Burnham days, and couldn't get no way 30 years after the PNC. And Corbyn was able to oust him.
Couldn't get past Robert Corbyn. Couldn't get past Robert Corbyn. He got to know his own politics. So he couldn't get past Robert Corbyn.
But but intellectuals have to take him on about that genetic defect of African Guyanese. They have to take him on.
No. Comrade Kissoon, Uncle Freddie, let me tell you something I've realized. The guys sort of love being the victim. You tell, let me just say this. You tell people, no. You tell people, right? This is history that I know and study. Yeah, you tell people this history here, that one, we built the pyramids. Two, we ruled Europe with the Moors for a number of years. That the washing machine, You name it, we did it. Our history is not about slavery. You talk that message, nobody can gravitate to it. But the minute you say, boy, you were a victim, you're pity poor boy, the people beating you, you're a victim, you get to discriminate, you get to hate it, oh, oppressed, you're apartheid. Oh, they love that message.
On that note, we got to go.
They love that message.
On that note, we got to go. Alexander had a mouthful to say. You have adequate.
I've had a mouthful too. I've had a mouthful too, sir.
James?
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity.
On behalf of Leonard Craig, my co-host, our guest was the man who had a license to defend himself. Guyana's famous 007 James Bond, replying to Vincent Alexander's theory of him that he's suffering from post-slavery psychic trauma that is in his DNA because it's in African Guyanese DNA. We will see you on Friday. Take care of yourself. Have a pleasant Easter weekend and take care of yourself on the roadway and watch out on the roadways. We came into this world to help others.